Let's start off.
Yes, welcome to Nakatomi Prod.
Yes, welcome to the Nakatomi headlines. And quite a thriller of diehard variety in Dallas, where for a lot of reasons, mainly financially, I needed the Dallas Cowboys to win this game. And this game took 2 years off my life. Like that,
sure.
Going through everything there. I'd written it off when they were down, 10, relatively late. But they pull it off. They get some turnovers late. But fantasy-wise, I think the story was CeeDee Lamb, who continues to establish himself as a proper wide receiver one.
Yeah, nothing short of amazing, right? Second game with over 30 fantasy points this season. He's now had over 100 receiving yards in 4 of his last 6. 10 receptions, 11 targets. I mean, that's the other thing. He got 11 targets. He caught 10 of them for $120 and 2 touchdowns. A lot of questions coming into the season. Could CeeDee Lamb become a number 1 wide receiver with so much of his success last year because teams were focusing on Amari Cooper, and would he be able to move all over, use him in the slot, on the outside? And I think CeeDee Lamb has answered. Friend of the podcast,
yeah.
CeeDee Lamb, by the way.
We probably had a small role in that performance.
We probably had a small role in that. Eights, my boy Eights.
Yes.
Anyway, CeeDee Lamb, fantasy royalty. In a week in which many fantasy superstars did not show up, CeeDee Lamb did in a big way. And it's also nice to see Dak Prescott, who's been up and down. He's been fine, but he's been much more of a floor quarterback this year than a high upside quarterback. But in this one, when you needed him the most, a season high in fantasy points, 28 of them to be exact. As we head into Monday Night Football, he is the number 1 quarterback in fantasy. He's now had back-to-back games with over 20 fantasy points, 3 passing touchdowns in 3 of the last 4 games. And so I think this was really impressive as well. Against zone coverage, he completed all 24 of his passes. He went for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Eagles' tough zone defense. So nice to see him. He's at Tennessee next week, and we'll talk about that game, obviously, throughout the week. But I wonder if there's a chance that the Titans rest their starters in that particular game. He finishes out at my Commanders.
Yep. Two quick things around Dak in the passing game. Firstly, to your point around CeeDee moving around, Avonte Maddox came out of that game. CeeDee went into the slot and then just cooked. So that gives him such a higher ceiling that he can move around. And then secondly, with Dak, like I said, as someone very invested in the Cowboys winning that game, the play calling was just infuriating in the first 3 quarters in particular, because I think Dak at one point had basically completed his first 16 or so passes outside of the one incompletion, which was a pick 6, unfortunately. But he was doing whatever he wanted against that Eagles defense, and that passing offense is as good as it gets. But they're committed to running Ezekiel Elliott for 3 yards a carry, 16 times.
I've been carrying the torch for the fact that Die Hard is a Christmas movie for ever since it came out. Something I've been carrying the torch for not as long, but almost as long, is that Mike McCarthy is the most overrated coach currently in the NFL.
Kills me.
And you could say, what about Nathaniel Hackett or Josh McDaniels? I don't think those guys are overrated.
No, they're rated.
They're properly rated.
Yeah.
Those guys are properly
they're
rated.
Bad films.
Those guys are, really good. Todd Bowles, same thing. I think there's a long list of guys that are really good coordinators. McDaniels is a really good coordinator. I think Todd Bowles is a really cool coordinator. I think there's questions about them as head coaches. I don't think McCarthy's a good head coach.
He's not. Nick Sirianni, though, he is a very good head coach, and he gave them every chance to win that game. And the Eagles put up big numbers.
If I am the Cowboys, they got out with a win. I'm worried. They needed to come back from this game, and at home, in a home game, facing Gardner Minshew, they barely beat this team.
Yep.
They barely beat the Eagles.
Yeah, I came out of this game thinking that the Eagles are going to walk to the NFC title if they can just get through San Francisco, because the Cowboys, their defense could not do anything against Minshew. And really the guy, Minshew was the story, but the big story to me was DeVonta Smith, who looked like CeeDee Lamb and was matching him play for play.
A lot of questions coming into the game about whether his production that had been so terrific recently would continue with Dallas Goedert back, because it seemed like his ascension, if you will, had sort of coincided with Dallas Goedert going out, and he now has 4 straight games with over 17 fantasy points, over 100 in 3 of the last 4, and in 8 of the 9 games since week 7. So since week 7, right? He's had at least 8 targets in 8 of those 9 games. Didn't matter that there's a quarterback switch. Didn't matter that Dallas Goedert was out there. DeVonta Smith, who was a first-round draft pick 2 years ago, showing why he was just terrific as well. Wherever you turn, there is a weapon for Philadelphia. Not a great game for Miles Sanders. I mean, but he got the volume, right? I mean, again, it's a tough matchup here, but if you told me, hey, in a game in which the Eagles are competitive, Miles Sanders is getting 22 touches, you're like, I'll sign up for that.
Yep.
What's weird is that we thought, well, hey, this would be good because with Gardner Minshew in there, now Miles Sanders will get the rushing touchdowns because Jalen Hurts isn't there to vulture him. Nope. Gardner Minshew still takes it in for a rushing touchdown, and you're like, what am I going to do?
Yeah. And Minshew himself, I mean, he played well enough to the point, and Brown and Smith and the offensive line are so good that I think you feel okay if you have to stream him against the Saints if Jalen Hurts doesn't play.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other big thing. I mean, Gardner Minshew had a lot of expectations coming to this game, and he met or exceeded them.
Yes.
As we head into Monday Night Football, he's the 7th best quarterback in fantasy in Week 16, and so all the stuff we said last week, like, hey, the position players that you would normally start on the Eagles, we're not worried about with Gardner Minshew under center, and that obviously came true in a fairly big way. You know, again, somewhat of a down game for Sanders, but if he gets that touchdown instead of Minshew, I think things are different there. But 355 yards, 2 touchdowns. Yes, he does have the 2 picks, but they threw 40 passes in this game. They were not trying to hide Gardner Minshew.
Yep. It feels weird because the Cowboys had the best defense in the league last year, had a top 3 defense for much of this year, but Saints are going to be a tougher matchup for Minshew than what the Cowboys showed. Cowboys couldn't do anything. I don't think the Eagles punted in the entire game. Like, the Eagles just moved the ball at will, and the Cowboys needed a host of turnovers.
Worth noting, by the way, that game is in Philadelphia. The game next week against the Saints is in Philadelphia, so maybe it might not be great weather as well. It won't be in the Dome in Louisiana. So I agree with you. But I think that to the extent that if Jalen Hurts does not play next week, and the reports are he's going to push to play, Eagles still have not clinched that #1 playoff berth. And as we've talked about last week, again, if the Eagles beat the Saints on Sunday, that helps the Eagles because they own the Saints draft pick. So, I mean, so we'll see if Hurts plays. We'll talk about that all week long. But I think the important thing here is that, again, no significant drop-off in terms of the production of the ancillary guys from Jalen Hurts to Gardner Minshew. Lane Johnson, by the way, news coming out just before we went on air, he's going to miss some time. He's banged up and hurt. So I don't know if he's being placed on IR, if he's done for the season or not, but he's definitely not playing this week. He's out for the regular season, I'm being told, so in my ear. So that's obviously a big loss for the offensive line.
I like that you clarified it was in your ear as opposed to just hearing
magically,
voices.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, not hearing voices, suddenly like that. Yeah. Detective John
And that
McClane.
wouldn't have been a Christmas movie if Matthew Barry was hearing strange voices
I like
from
that.
afar that Lane Johnson was out.
We should do a fantasy football happy hour. There should be a Christmas movie. Sort of I have to think of it. There's some sort of miracle.
Me as the Grinch, obviously, so spoiled.
Obviously,
use
the Grinch. You'll wear green paint, right?
Yeah, I'm a big green
good.
guy.
Perfect.
One of my favorite colors as a New York Jets fan. Let's talk about the other New York team, the Giants. They lose in heartbreaking fashion to the Vikings. So I feel better about the Giants coming out of that game, actually, just with how well they played. But the Vikings continue their insane record in one-score games. You better beat them by 30, otherwise you're not going to beat them at all. But fantasy-wise, the story was TJ Hawkinson. We've been waiting for this, and he broke out in a big way.
Well, he's been really good all year long, except of course the 1 week when I needed him to catch one of those 2 touchdown passes when they got blown out. And if he just catch one of them, then I would have won my guillotine league. But no, of course he didn't. So the 1 week where he didn't go off. But yeah, 13 for 109, 2 touchdowns here. He's the only tight end in a league that has Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce and George Kittle and so on and so forth. He's the only tight end this season with multiple games of over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, 16 targets against the Giants. Felt like that was just an area of the field that Kirk Cousins, could target as well. Since he's been traded to Minnesota, he's averaging over 9 targets a game. And I don't know that there's much to say about Hawkinson other than if you had him, thank you, TJ Hawkinson. And if you faced him, damn it, TJ Hawkinson. I had both scenarios to me yesterday. I faced him in a couple leagues, which was very annoying, and I had him in a couple leagues where he helped me out in a big way. Suffice it to say, the leagues in which I'm still alive in one of the leagues in which I faced Hawkinson because, but other than that, yeah,
It is what it is.
It is what it is. What do you it's great, and I think that I wonder if there's an I don't think I'm there yet. But there's an argument to be made for next year that he's tight end number 2 after Kelce.
Yeah.
Just
see what happens with Mark Andrews.
Andrews has been bad for basically for a long time here. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with Lamar Jackson. We expect him back in Baltimore, but he is a free agent after this year. They could we'll see, but there's an argument to be made, especially given if you think about the comp after Justin Jefferson, it's like Adam Thielen, who's kind of on his last legs here, and KJ Osborne, who's had moments but hasn't been consistent.
Look, if they keep Brock Purdy the starter, George Kittle might have to be in that conversation, given he balls out whenever he plays.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that coming up. But regardless, whatever. Just a super impressive performance by T.J. Hawkinson. You know what's weird in this game was that for as well as the Vikings looked, they put up 27 points, and Justin Jefferson was Justin Jefferson, whatever. Yep. Dalvin Cook, not great.
No. He wasn't. It's been a weird season for Dalvin Cook because he's still producing. And look, he was 14 for 64, 4.6 yards per carry. That's fine. I think the key with this game is that I think both coaches were very smart with their approach in that, look, you expect that the Giants are going to establish Saquon Barkley. Well, the Minnesota run defense is fine and the pass defense is atrocious. And so Dable threw the ball with Daniel Jones twice as much as he ran it. So I think that colored a lot of the game. And I think on the other side as well, the Giants' pass defense is no good. And so the Vikings were just throwing. So I think you probably just chalk it up to that. Wouldn't be too concerned about Dalvin.
No, listen, he got 17 touches this game. He got over 70 total yards. So, it was whatever. It's fine. But you just, in a game in which they moved the ball pretty easily, I thought that was something. But, once again, Kirk Cousins, we talked about him in the preseason, that this was going to be a pass-happy offense. He threw the ball 48 times in this game. 299 yards and 3 touchdowns for Kirk Cousins. Let's turn over to the Giants here, and just like we all expected, heroes of Week 16, Isaiah Hodgins and Richie James. I actually played Richie James in DFS this week. Hodgins was the better play. 11 targets. You know what Hodgins has now scored in 3 of his last 4 games? 8 for 89 and a touchdown.
It's strange to think
Isaiah Hodgins has become a thing.
Daniel Jones is fine. He's a decent quarterback. There's not that much difference between Daniel Jones and, I think he's been better than Derek Carr this year, for instance. Derek Carr also has just become the go-to when you're talking about average quarterback in the NFL. He's lost that mantle now. Maybe Daniel Jones is the new poster boy for
Kirk
kind of
Cousins,
uninspiring confidence.
Kirk Cousins used to be sort of the poster boy for that.
Kirk Cousins got a little too good.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Now I don't think there's much difference between Daniel Jones and Kirk Cousins. And so, look, I think receiver-wise, Darius Slayton's still the guy that you feel best about in New York. And look, it's not so fantasy relevant, but I think Saquon Barkley's healthy again. I don't know what happened in that month period where he wasn't doing anything, but he's got his burst back. He looked like Saquon Barkley again, has the 4th and 2 run, shows the explosion. And then they tie the game up with the 2-point after this. But he goes 14 for 84 and a touchdown, and then also gets the 8 receptions. One
of the best values in fantasy football, coming up big when you needed it the most. And so just been an incredibly good comeback year for Saquon Barkley. He's probably, I would assume he's the betting favorite for comeback player of the year.
Betting favorite.
He should
after,
be.
His game.
He should be, especially given the fact that the Giants now only need to win one of their next 2 games to clinch a playoff spot. They're home to the Colts next week. Indy obviously playing tonight, so the Colts will be traveling on a short week to face New York in New York, or New Jersey, if as it were. But Daniel Jones continues to be a viable streamer. He's a top 10 fantasy quarterback heading into Monday Night Football. He was on the love list. And all these sort of guys, Isaiah Hodgins, Richie James. Richie James has at least 13 fantasy points in 4 of the past 6. Right? Isaiah Hodgins has scored in 3 of the past 4. Darius Slayton has at least 60 receiving yards in 6 of his past 8 games. All of a sudden.
Giants' offense is good. It's good. People think that they're like a plucky defense that ekes out. No, the offense is legitimately pretty good. The defense is not good at all.
And again, he won't win the award, but if Brian Daboll did win the award, I wouldn't have any issue with it at all. The job he's done with the Giants this year has been nothing short of phenomenal.
He should be top 3. Let's go to Buffalo-Chicago, which was just a really weird game.
Do we have to?
It was very strange. Why is Josh Allen doing this? Why is he throwing these picks?
I don't know.
They were very strange.
I don't know. It was bad.
But the good news is that Devin Singletary, who has been... Look, Devin Singletary he shouldn't have been getting dropped anywhere, but he wasn't performing, and now he breaks out with 106 yards and a touchdown on the ground.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, and it's not even the massive usage. So Devin Singletary got 12 carries in this game. James Cook got 11. Nyheim Hines gets 1. Allen had 6 on his own. But it's weird. Their run game has been I mean, they just ran all over the Bears, and I have to go back and watch this game. But the sense that I get, honestly, is that the Bears were like, okay, fine, we'll give up yardage on the ground. We're not going to let Josh Allen beat us with a big arm, and that's exactly what happened. They just got these huge chunk plays. James Cook had a 27-yard run. Devin Singletary a 33-yard run as well. And so, obviously Cook cashed his in for a touchdown. They look good. 12 for 106, 11 for 99 for James Cook. They both each get a rushing touchdown. Josh Allen also runs one into the end zone as well. But it was a Christmas miracle. Gabe Davis scored a touchdown.
Gabe Davis did score a touchdown, yeah. But Stephon Diggs did not, and he goes 2 for 26. Stephon Diggs, look, universal top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. It's been a quiet stretch for him as the weather's gotten colder.
2 for 26 on 2 targets. That's the shocker to me. Again, they were running the ball at will, and then they got it big, and so maybe they just felt like that's what we want to do, and it was really cold in Chicago. But it's certainly, when he only gets 2 targets, that's the thing that's shocking to me.
Yep. As I was watching this game, you know what I thought? I thought, Kansas City's going to win the Super Bowl. Kansas City, they just seem to me like clearly the best team. And if the Bills lose in Cincinnati in primetime this coming week, then the Chiefs will be in the box seat to get the 1 seed. And Patrick Mahomes has basically sewed up MVP now with Jalen Hurts being out.
I felt like last year, this is more of a football discussion than a fantasy one, but I just felt like last year we thought, the Bills are really good, but they're knocking on the door. They need to tweak 1 or 2 things just to take that next step. Yep. And it doesn't feel like they've had. In fact, I would argue that this Bills team has slightly regressed from last year.
I just think the weird thing is that last year you were thinking, all right, Josh Allen, he's done everything he possibly can. He needs help. This year it's more like, well, everything around him is great. Can he stop throwing these mind-numbing interceptions? Can he stop fumbling the ball? Allen has been the problem in the past. And look, Allen's still, he's an elite quarterback. He's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, no questions asked. But he is not playing at the level that Mahomes is playing at right now, or even particularly close. So we'll see what happens there. It's still probably going to be these.
He throws 2 picks. He puts the ball on the ground once. Now, they ended up recovering that. But still, 3 potential turnovers against a pretty bad defense. Again, right, the game was in Chicago and it's cold. I get that, but you're Josh Allen. You guys are Buffalo. Yep. It's not like, you're some dome team, that you're all of a sudden oh, it's cold or whatever. You're the, some warm weather team.
Exactly.
You guys are the Bills.
Difficult game for Allen. Also a difficult game for Justin Fields, who basically did nothing, which was a shame for me and other people who have been counting on Justin Fields in their fantasy team all year long. Didn't give us the playoff performance we were hoping for. He does throw for a touchdown, but just 119 passing yards, and more to the point, just 11 yards rushing. Yeah,
he in the postgame, he was having trouble putting weight on one of his feet, and he also re-injured the non-throwing shoulder. So you wonder, was he just did he just get banged up and he tried to gut it through in the game? But maybe that was one of the issues where he wasn't 100%, and obviously Buffalo was figured out, hey, we need to stop this. Worth noting though, if Justin Fields is healthy for next week, he's at Detroit, who he absolutely crushed the last time he faced them. So if you survived it and he's back in next week, I think you're doing it. But just bad day at the office for Justin Fields. Again, I think he was probably more hurt than he let on. Whatever Dave Montgomery did, typical Dave Montgomery type things, didn't get in the end zone here, but had, 80 yards on 20 touches. That's basically Dave Montgomery. Had some passing game usage, 4 for 22. I don't know that there's anyone in the Bears passing attack that you feel great about.
Felix Jones Jr. catches a bomb, but you're not going to be using him in fantasy, particularly in the playoffs. I do like the Lions as 5.5-point favorites against the Bears. I think that's a decent bet regardless. Then if Fields is out, even more so. But let's jump to those Detroit Lions who got absolutely ravaged on the ground by the Carolina Panthers, who just keep pounding, and now they play. It's not a winner-takes-all game against the Bucs, but it's going to decide who's the front runner for the division in the pitiful NFC South, where the Panthers play Tampa, and they did whatever they wanted on the ground.
This was in a weekend of very surprising things. This was one of the most shocking results I've ever seen.
7.4 yards per carry, and they ran the ball 43 times against the Detroit run D that have been pretty good lately.
They were a top 5 run defense coming into this game over the last month. Top 5. They've been good for about 2 months against the run. They've been fantastic over the last month, and Carolina was like, we don't care. I'll own it. after last week's game, D'Onta Foreman gets less than 1 fantasy point, and they're facing the Lions, and you're like, it's probably going to be Chuba Hubbard. It drives me crazy. I benched D'Onta Foreman in a couple of different leagues. It's not going to end up mattering. I'm going to end up winning in 2 of them, and the one that had I started him in, I'm going to lose. It wouldn't have mattered. I just would have made it closer. But, so it's like one of those.
You like that.
That's always, I do. I always like that. I'd much rather be like, I notice it. I'm like, you know what? It doesn't matter what combination I would have come up with.
Yes.
The other person had just a better team. That it was their day. And that's the case of the person that I lost to that in the league that I benched Foreman. But D'Onta Foreman looked great. Chuba Hubbard, you knew right from the get-go. The very first play, yep. I think Chuba Hubbard broke off a 30-yard run. And then another 20-something run, you're like, what? Shocking to me, not the rushing game usage, because we know Carolina has been wanting to run, but just how successful they were. Foreman plays 44% of the snaps after playing just 30%. Last week, Chuba Hubbard has now had 4 straight games with over 65 total yards. He has 125 yards, and he has that $125 on just 12 carries. Yeah. They were just ripping off chunks and chunks and chunks of yardage. And after, now Tampa Bay have to travel back. They're back home. The game next week is in Tampa Bay, but Tampa Bay traveling on Christmas. They were the Sunday night game last week. Nothing I saw last night makes me think that the Tampa Bay run defense is that you're gonna we'll see if they get via Vic, but the Panthers are running
nothing.
They're not trying to hide it. They're like, we're just keep doing it until you can stop it. And so far, teams aren't stopping it. They're averaging over 40 rushing attempts a game.
Yeah. There's nothing I've seen in the past 2 months that makes me think that the Carolina Panthers aren't just better than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at this point. I think the defense is better, and the Tampa offense is a complete mess. The look-ahead line on Panthers at Bucks was 7.5. Now it's 3. So people have made the BetMGM, the market has completely given up on the Bucks. I think a sneaky thing as well is that Sam Darnold's been really solid for the Panthers, which is really weird to say. But Darnold, if Sam Darnold was on the New York Jets, right now the New York Jets would be fighting for the division with the Buffalo Bills. Darnold has been perfectly fine for what they need, and DJ Moore has been the big beneficiary. He goes 5 for 83 and a touchdown.
Yeah, it was looking dicey there early because they were just crushing them, and DJ Moore wasn't getting any looks, but it finally gets going. To your point, gets the 7 targets, 5 for 83 and a score, as you just mentioned here. But yeah, Foreman with 21 for 165, Hubbard 12 for 125. And by the way, could have been even more because Sam Darnold gets a rushing touchdown. They easily could have gone to one of those 2 guys, to Hubbard, or Foreman could have been an even bigger game here. It's really interesting. Both running backs are viable against Tampa Bay as sort of flex plays. And DJ Moore, backed his fantasy relevance with Sam Darnold as his quarterback. It's shocking. It would be shocking to me. By the way, if the there's something that's kind of amazing that if the Carolina Panthers made the playoffs, they fire the coach, they trade Christian McCaffrey, they trade Robbie Anderson. They appear to be right. They release Baker Mayfield, and then they still make. I'll
tell you what,
Steve Wilks. If they make the playoffs, Steve Wilks has to be in the Coach of the Year running, and what he's done since he's taken over it's
unbelievable. I'll tell you what, Cowboys at Panthers, wildcard round is going to be sick. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun game of football. Let's talk about Jared Goff, who still might have something to say in the playoff race. Now, the concern about Detroit on the road in the cold is always Jared Goff on the road in the cold, but he wasn't the problem at all. He put up his best road game of the season. He goes 355 and 3 touchdowns. The 3 touchdowns all going to Shane Zylstra.
Okay. So, to me, that's the biggest storyline, is that Jared Goff was good on the road. As we enter Monday Night Football, he's the second best quarterback in fantasy football. 25.7 fantasy points. You mentioned the 3 touchdowns. He also threw in 3 runs for 15 yards, which you don't often see.
Look good, Jared.
Look good. He's now had over 300 yards passing in 3 of the past 4 games. It was more points in this road game than his previous 2 road games combined, which is good. They're home to Chicago next week. So, you know, in a dome. We like Jared Goff next week.
He could be a top 5 quarterback option next week, honestly.
And so It is sort of crazy, though. In a game in which Jared Goff is good, they throw 42 times, he throws for 355, and he throws 3 touchdown passes, and not a one of them goes to Amon-Ra St. Brown, DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams, DJ Shark, not even Josh Reynolds or Jameson Williams. Like, they all go to Shane Zylstra.
Do you know anyone who started him?
Shane Zylstra had 5 receptions in this game, right? 3 of which goes for touchdowns. Coming into the game, he had 5 receptions on the year. On the year. Shane Zylstra had more fantasy points in Week 16 than Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews combined. Shane Zylstra, sitting on everyone's waiver wire.
That's why we play the game.
That is why we play the game. This is the life we've chosen, Jay Croucher. It
really makes you upset, doesn't it, when these guys like Shane Zylstra, who's the Raheem Blackshear as well, when those guys get in the end zone.
Touchdowns. Touchdowns are so hard to come by. And
another touchdown for Blackshear, by the way, your boy.
That guy drives me crazy. That guy drives me crazy. 3 carries for 3 yards and a touchdown for Raheem Blackshear.
Yeah.
We couldn't have given that to Foreman or Hubbard, or I literally had to start Sam Darnold in a 2-quarterback league. And in my Scott Fishbowl, for people that are familiar with that, I'm still alive in the playoffs. I'm down to the final 500. They cut it down. It's a tournament that starts with 3,000, and so I'm now I'm up to like the top 300, and so like I don't know. I need some stuff to go right for me tonight to move on, because they only take like the top 30. It goes from 500 to 30.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But anyway. Shout out to my friend Scott Fish and the Scott Fish Bowl.
Well, Raheem Blackshear makes you mad. Tua Tagovailoa makes me mad. Because somehow...
Because you had to watch that game?
I had to watch that game. I had over 49.5. Somehow it didn't go over, despite 20 points being scored in the first quarter. Mainly doesn't go over because Tua Tagovailoa has a new obsession with throwing mind-numbing interceptions. He has 3 of them. The last one was particularly painful. And the Dolphins' offense, look, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, they go off. Raheem Mostert, who has 33 yards in like the first 2 carries of the game, he is unsighted after that. And I don't really know what to do with this Dolphins team now, particularly with the backfield, given that there was a split between
This was
Wilson
a bad
and
loss. This was a bad loss. Any way you shake it, this is a game they needed to win. This is the game they could have won. And Tua was bad.
He was dreadful.
Right? I mean, like, that guy's a guy that was a top 5 overall pick. He's supposed to be your franchise. You gave him an offensive line. You gave him as many offensive weapons as any quarterback in the NFL has. And Waddle and Tyreek Hill and Gesicki's fine. Like a good run game and like.
We've mentioned Coach of the Year a couple of times, and I tweeted this yesterday that we should just give the award to Mike McDaniel because he convinced us for 3 months that Tua Tagovailoa was really, really good.
Yeah.
And now, when you're seeing what he's doing, and to me the thing with Tua, and this is the tell, is that when plays break down, when there is chaos, in the moments where Patrick Mahomes is at his best, Tua starts just doing random stuff. He starts just throwing the ball up into it's like he's forgotten the lines to the script that Mike McDaniel has written for him, and when there is chaos, he just melts down. And this Dolphins team now all of a sudden is playing for their season.
His QBR, which is a stat that ESPN came up with, that I think it's actually a pretty good stat that measures, and it's on a scale of 1 to 100. Tua's QBR in this game was 23.1.
That's bad.
I mean, just like whatever. Before don't do a deep dive. I'm just saying on a scale of 1 to 100. By a metric that is, highly regarded throughout the analytical industry. 23 on a scale of 1 to 100. In a game in which they were at home, in a game in which they needed to win, in a game in which they were playing a Packers defense that's fine, but not the 86 Bears.
And also, to his stats, he had 310 yards. A lot of that was just on a basic throw that Jalen Waddle took 84 yards
1,000%.
to the house. So.
He had a big play to Tyreek Hill, but also he made just some mind-numbing throws.
The big play to Tyreek Hill should have been a walk-in touchdown, and he underthrew it. So Tyreek had to come back to it, and then they had to run it in, so you don't get that touchdown either.
I posted this on my Instagram. I don't know if you saw it, but did you see Yair Alexander and his post-game press conference talk about his interception?
Yes.
And I'm not doing it justice. Go to my Instagram, and other people had it as well if you want to see it. But in essence, he was just like, yeah, they're asking about the interception. He's talking about Tyreek Hill. He's just like, yeah, I'm guarding this guy. And he's just like, he's fast. Oh, snap, he's fast. I got to back up. And then Tua is thrown. I'm like, wow, he's really going to overthrow him? Okay. And I just backed up and it fell in my head. Anyway, Alexander's a national treasure. It's great. But, I mean, it is like, Alexander's basically saying, like, I didn't make a great play. Like
No,
Tua just threw it to me.
It was just there. All right, let's race through these last couple points. Packers, I think the story there is Christian Watson gets hurt with his hip. We'll see what happens there. Outside of that, Aaron Rodgers continues to look better.
He did look better. He spread it around, obviously, to not just Watson, but Romeo Doubs gets 6 targets. Alan Lazard, 5 for 61 and 11 targets. Mercedes Lewis will not. I mean, like whatever. Death taxes and Mercedes Lewis is still. I mean, this is true. I looked this up. He played during the Civil War era.
That's good.
Like as a young man, I watched Mercedes Lewis play, and he's still out there. Anyway, God bless Mercedes Lewis.
Happy with that.
Aaron Jones' usage to me is the biggest concern here. Clearly not. He's been on the injury report every week since Week 10. He's clearly not 100% healthy. He had a knee injury on coming into Week 16. That was what he was listed with on the injury report. There was a 13-minute stretch in the third quarter where he did not play a snap.
Yeah. He's not right.
I mean, he's had under 40 rushing yards in 4 of the last 5 games, playing under 40% of the snaps in 2 of the last 3. The one game where he played more was when A.J. Dillon left with a concussion last week. We thought maybe he was out of the woods, but he just wasn't. We saw, we saw some, Patrick Taylor in this game as well. Like, it's
not great.
Not great. Free Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
Free Aaron Jones from the injury report. Once again, anyway, Aaron Jones, I love Aaron Jones. He's one of my favorite players in the NFL, and he's just out here killing people. Yeah. It's not his fault. He's trying to gut it out for the Packers, but he's just clearly not healthy.
Yeah, not great for Aaron Jones. Speaking of not great, let's spend about 18 seconds on this game Sunday night. Bucks, Cardinals, not really much to say about a pretty insipid game of football, unfortunately. James Conner, he did his job. Outside of that, nothing much here.
No, there wasn't. I mean, they were just Brady was bad, and in a defense. I said on Football Night in America. So I had 2 things. I had the Barry Boost. Barry Boost hit. Yeah. You're welcome. For everyone that tailed me on BetMGM, the Barry Boost, which were odds boosted, the parlay absolutely crushed. So you're welcome, making people money there. Football Night in America. Here were my 2 bets that I put. You want ready for this?
Yeah.
I said Tom Brady over 1.5 passing touchdowns, and I made a reference to the fact that clearly the odds from BetMGM clearly favored. It was minus 190, dude. Yeah. Minus 190. He did not get there. He couldn't do it. Minus 190, and they wanted me to talk about Brady, and so whatever. I took it, even though it was minus 190, and it didn't hit. No. And then I also said, well, DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins had double-digit targets coming into this game, in 6 of the last 7 games, and so he's had at least 7 receptions, and I want to say 7 of 9 games.
He had double-digit targets again.
He had 10 targets in this game. They would be a negative game script. He got 1 pass.
4 yards.
5.5.
At least he got 4 yards on the pass, though.
5.5 was the total. And I took the over there, and I was wrong. I mean, he had 10 targets. You're telling me DeAndre Hopkins? I don't care who's throwing the ball. DeAndre Hopkins is getting 10 targets. I think he's coming down with 6 of those.
Yeah, all right.
And he came down with 1 of them.
Well, he wallowed in that.
No, the human torch. The human torch was the thing. 10 for 98 yards. We'll talk more about these players as we head into next week at Atlanta. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and Rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from Rotoworld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.